Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paranormal News. Tonight's article comes from BigThink.com, and the headline is Paradox-Free Time Travel is Logically Possible, say physicists. Underneath the headline, it states, Grandfathers, take heart. You'll survive the paradox that's been gunning for you since the 1930s. It was published on October 2nd, 2020. It was written by Kevin Dickinson. For a century, the specter of paradoxes has loomed over physics theories and science fiction scripts. A University of Queensland undergraduate and his supervisor ran the numbers and found paradox-free time travel to be mathematically consistent. But the practical hurdles to time travel vastly outdistance the mathematical ones. Science fiction requires its fans to suspend their disbelief, and there's no greater ask in that department than when trying to enjoy a time travel story. Writers twist their plots into Gordian knots to explain how time travel could logically work in their futuristic worlds, when the simplest explanation is it probably doesn't. Many physicists have agreed with that assessment. Einstein wondered whether time travel, more specifically ramifications of Gödel's universe, could be excluded on physical grounds. In a 1992 paper, Stephen Hawking coined the chronologically protection conjecture. That's basically a temporal accord baked into the laws of the universe to render time travel impossible, and in Hawking's words, make the universe safe for historians. And Russian physicist Igor Dmitrievich Novikov formulated a similar idea with his self-consistency conjecture. But physics can't preclude the possibility of time travel entirely. Both general and special relativity shows time to be relative, and general relativity is open to the possibility of temporal shenanigans. But if you could hop into a time machine and jet back in time, would you need to worry about generating history-altering paradoxes? Not according to a new study published in the peer-reviewed Classical and Quantum Gravity. The math shows the universe will sort things out. The classic temporal thought experiment is known as the grandfather paradox. It goes like this. Imagine you decide to go back in time to kill your grandfather. Yes, his election year posts have been that embarrassing. You travel back and kill him before he conceives one half of your parents. But then, how is it that you can exist to go back and kill him? But if you don't exist, then who killed your grandfather? Paradox. The timeline is no longer self-consistent. Maybe. You can play this game with most time-traveling tales. In Back to the Future, Marty travels back in time and interferes with his parents' dalliance, preventing himself from being born. But if Marty is never born, how does he interfere with his parents' dalliance? But if he can't interfere, what's preventing him from being born? And around we go. One would think such worries limited to high-minded philosophy debates or lowbrow movie riffs. But some solutions to Einstein's field equations allow time travel through closed time-like curves. These theoretical paths would allow someone to be present at an initial event, travel through space and time, and return to that event again. Think a space-time loop-de-loop. Importantly, the return point is not a repeat of the initial event. It is the initial event. The implications of closed time-like curves leads to all sorts of wild time travel scenarios. According to physicist Michio Kaku, these have included traveling through a wormhole, through a spinning black hole, around an infinitely long spinning cylinder, and around two colliding cosmic strings. With time travel on the theoretical table, Tobar Germain, a University of Queensland undergraduate, wanted to test its consistency. Is paradox-free time travel mathematically possible? To answer that question, he teamed up with Dr. Fabio Costa, a University of Queensland physicist, to crunch the numbers. Some physicists say it is possible, but logically it's hard to accept because that would affect our freedom to make any arbitrary action, Tobar said in a release. It would mean you can time travel, but you cannot do anything that would cause a paradox to occur. According to their research, time travel can be consistent and free of logical paradoxes. However, that requires the outputs of all but two space-time regions to be fixed. In that case, despite the presence of closed time-like loops, entities can maintain their freedom of choice without resulting in a paradox. The math checks out, and the results are the stuff of science fiction. Costa said in the same release. To illustrate their findings, Tobar and Costa offer a thought experiment straight out of science fiction. Imagine you travel through time to stop the virus pandemic. You locate and quarantine patient 0. Mission and paradox accomplished, right? That according to their research. The math suggests that temporal events would adjust to being logically consistent with any action you made. For example, you may catch the virus, become patient 0, and spread the pandemic anyway. Therefore, future, earned past, you still have the stimulus that sent you back in time initially. No matter what you did, the salient events would just recalibrate around you, Tobar said. That would mean that no matter your actions, the pandemic would occur, giving your younger self the motivation to go back and stop it. The range of mathematical processes we discovered shows that time travel with free will is logically possible in our universe without any paradox. Of course, saying paradox-free time travel is mathematically consistent is a wildly different statement than saying it is practically possible. Even if you could take the plunge into a wormhole, there's a good chance you'd be crushed out of existence before reaching the other end. Souped up DeLorean or no? It all depends on how the laws of quantum gravity shake out. And physicists are still exploring that very open question. What about those other scenarios Kaku pointed out? In a follow-up article, he points out that none can be realized using known physical mechanisms. So while we may be the Time Lords of the whiteboard, the universe will be a one-way street for the foreseeable future. And that is the end of this article. Now, Mikio Kaku also had an amazing theory about time travel that I want to share with you real quickly. It's not mentioned in this article, but I watched a speech that he gave, and he was talking about how there would be no paradoxes in time travel because everything you do, if you travel into the past, creates an alternate timeline, another universe. It's part of the multiverse theory. And basically what it states, let's use the grandfather example, that you go back in time, kill your grandfather, therefore your parents never met. In that example, you go back, you kill your grandfather, that creates a paradox, according to known time travel theory. But according to Mikio Kaku, what would happen at that point is the timeline would split, and a brand new universe would be created, in which just your grandfather would no longer be your grandfather, it would be some other dude. And maybe a little bit about you would be a little bit different, because it would be another father. But you would still keep on existing. This way there would be absolutely no paradoxes. Like say you went back in time to take out Hitler in World War II. Okay, you do that, and then another universe is created where he was taken out at that time period that you took him out. So it doesn't affect your future. Your future is exactly the same. The future you came from, exactly the same as the one you left, as when you left it. But the timeline continues on in a different direction in that other universe, if that makes sense. That's his basic theory that has to do with the multiverse theory of time travel and why there would be no paradoxes. And I think it's a fascinating thing. I'm a little bit upset that they didn't mention that in this article, because maybe this article was done before he came up with that theory, because this article was done in 2020. And it's a fairly recent speech that I watched. I'm not sure the time frame on it, but most likely it was after he was interviewed for this article. Maybe this article interview is what made him start thinking about that, and that's how he came up with that theory. I don't know. But anyway, that's his theory, and I happen to agree with it. I think that's a pretty good theory. Let me know down in the comments section what you guys think. As always, it is up to you to make up your own minds, and I will catch you in the next one. Until I speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do I. Bye-bye.